Hi there, welcome back to Hydroponics Daily with me, Dr. Russell Sharp. Today's episode is about setting up a medium-sized nutrient film technique, or NFT, hydroponic system. And that's because we're about to do this in the laboratories here at Utrema. And I just thought I'd talk you through how we're going to go about doing this. We've set up nutrient film technique systems in the past, and so I'll talk you through the points to consider and also the reasons for doing so. So we've got our grow room set up, and we've got a cocoa medium in pots at the moment, and we're growing a plant called blackgrass, which is an important weed in Europe. And the reason I'm moving to NFT is because we had an aphid outbreak and just was uncontrollable, and we think that the aphids were in the grow media. So with an NFT, we can sterilize the grow media far easier than you could with a peat-based or a cocoa-based grow medium, because there's just so much root volume. And so the aphids were hiding on the roots that were taking so long to die. So we'd be able to control the aphids, other pests, and we think there was also nematodes in there, and also a disease called take-all, which is really bad. It affects all grass plants, and so take-all just weakens the plant, makes it yellow, and eventually dies off. And so the plants were dying for no reason, probably due to take-all, and also things like smut. So NFT, we can eliminate that. We also want to increase the production. We've got a medium-sized grow room, and we want to increase production and maximize the space. And NFT allows you to do that more than you can with cocoa. So we need to really bite the bullet and move over to an NFT system, kill off all the plants that are in there and start again. We also want a bit of razzle-dazzle in our laboratory, and NFT just looks cool compared to cocoa-grown plants. And we want to showcase gold leaf, or as it's known in the UK, liquid gold, to its full potential, and have a system where we can run it through its paces in an extreme case here with this plant. Now, I've said a medium-sized NFT system, and I'm just going to talk about medium-sized NFTs because small-scale NFT doesn't really work very often. There were a number of systems set up that could do small-scale NFT, like the IWS from Nutriculture in the UK, but it doesn't really maximize space, and compared to other ways of growing in a very small space, it's far more suited to medium-sized and large-scale grows where you have these long gullies, where you can have long stretches of gullies, and you can't really do that in a small grow room. So medium-sized and large-sized NFT starts to become the best option for hydroponics and soil cultivation. However, we're still going medium-sized. We're not going full, as big as you would find in a tomato greenhouse, and we're going to use guttering from the site that you would buy from a normal hardware store. And now normally guttering doesn't fit the slabs of rock wool or mineral wool that you would purchase from a hydroponic store. Now, if you flip that rock wool on its side, it will fit in a gutter, certainly a European or a UK flat and bottomed gutter. American gutters, I think, are probably larger. Everything's larger in America, so you may be able to fit a rock wool slab flat in one. But I like to grow side on in a gutter. And then the important thing is with the rock wool slabs, don't take them out of their packaging. Their packaging is there for a reason, and that's to stop algal growth and fungal growth and fungus gnats and things like that. So you don't take off the wrapper. The wrapper is integral to the slab. You simply poke a hole where you want your plants and your outlet and inlet sections to be. So that's important. You'll need a drill, and you'll need drill bits to drill holes in the parts where you want drills to the right size, and that's going to be critical. You need to do a bit of research on how you drill through plastic guttering. Otherwise, you can make some expensive mistakes. And then the rubber seals on the piping as well. You need to make sure you're buying the right ones. Speak to your grow shop. That's what they're there for. That's their area of expertise. You're going to need a pump that can pump the water to the height that you want. Always overspec your pump, and because you don't want it to be straining, because if something's going to fail in a nutrient film technique, it's going to be the pump, and it can have disastrous consequences. And if it does, you better make sure you've got a big tank, because what's the number one error that happens in NFT when it comes to flooding is that you fill up your system, you fill up your tank, and then you turn your pump on, especially if you've not flushed your rock wool slabs, pre-flush them, and then you pump it up, and then all the water disappears, all the fertigation solution disappears out your tank. And so you go, oh, right, I've got to fill it again. So you fill it again with more water and more fertigation solution right to the brim. And then you have your system running, and hey presto, you've got a fabulous running NFT system. But then the pump fails for some reason, it turns off, or there's a power trip. And then all that solution that was in the rock wool slab slowly starts draining back into that tank that's not having any fertigation solution taken out of it by the pump, and that overflows and it fills the space out. So always make sure that you've got enough space in your big tank for a pump failure, ideally. And then also make sure that there's no electrical fittings on the floor anywhere in the grow room, so that if the pump did fail, or if the tank failed, more importantly, then they wouldn't get exposed to water. And then you come into your grow room and get electrocuted. Now, tanks can fail because the pipes are often fitted at the bottom, and for whatever reason they can fail. They can degrade over time. The plastic can break down. So accidents happen. The other thing we're going to have in our system is a UV filter that's got an aeration unit set into it. I bought this off eBay. Not sure it's any good. I've used it previously and it didn't really get rid of any algae, but it's better than a slap in the face, so might as well have it running. We're also going to have a particle filter on the return as it goes into the tank, because little bits of roots and little bits of rock wool and little bits of algae and fungus all build up in the tank if you're not careful. And so just catching that as it comes back into the tank is going to be a good idea. We're going to have an EC meter just to monitor nutrient levels. We'll use a pH meter as well, even though we're using gold leaf. As I say, we'll keep the electrics off the floor. We're going to start our plants off as seed in a small aeroponics unit. We don't want to be starting them off in peat or anything like that. That's going to contaminate the system with horrible bacteria and mud and things like this. So you want to keep it all as nice and sterile as possible to begin with. So we'll probably use an aeroponic system or just small rock wool slabs to get the seedlings going. These are, grass weeds, so they should grow fairly well. We're going to stand it off the floor. So my colleague Matthew is going to have to build a system where the slabs gently flow from one to the other on an angle around the grow room and then back to the tank. So that should be interesting. And then the piping we'll use, I think it's 13mm piping, which seems to be the fairly standard one. And then you can buy all the bits, the plastic, the rubber seals and things like this to get it going. And then the other thing is just to minimize the amount of space that the fertigation solution can see the light from the grow lights, just to make sure that there's no algal buildup. So we'll be using peroxide, might even use a bit of lime sulfur, which we have on site, we sell anyway, to sterilize the units, and that should control the algae. So that's our medium-sized NFT system. Obviously, we're not buying in the specialized NFT big gutters that you can buy for, say, if you're a greenhouse grower, but I think this one dramatically reduces the cost. I think that guttering move is a good one. The rock wool is fairly cheap anyway, I think, considering compared to the price of growing media. And obviously we're making the nutrients and we're not using pH up or pH down, so we don't need to worry about separate tanks for that, certain storage for the hazardous materials. And hopefully we'll have a really good system, and I'll be able to update you on how it goes and how the blackgrass plants are growing later on. We might even have two systems in the grow room, one for blackgrass and one for something a bit more showy, a bit more edible. And then, so that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. How to set up a medium-sized NFT system in a grow room. Thank you very much for listening.